I trusted my son with my whole heart. Not because he was perfect, but because he was my child. When he told me he needed to travel for work, I did not question him. I packed his clothes, I pressed his shirts, I put a little extra food in his bag, the way mothers do even when their children are grown. That morning, I stood at the door and watched him. A single choice can change your life forever. Today, I'm sharing how betrayal forced me to choose myself when no one else would. Before the first chapter unfolds, please subscribe and hit like to help us reach others who might need to hear this. I'd love to know where you're watching from tonight. Leave your city name in the comments so I can welcome you personally. And now, the story begins. Leave. He hugged me quickly, not cold, just rushed. "I will be back soon, Amma," he said. I smiled. I always smiled. I did not know that trip would change everything. I did not know that when he came back, my place in his life would be smaller, quieter, almost invisible. A few weeks later, my daughter-in-law looked at me across the kitchen table. Her voice was calm, too calm. "Amma, maybe it is better if you stay somewhere else for a while." I remember holding my cup of tea with both hands so she would not see them shake. I did not cry. I did not shout. I did not ask why. I smiled instead. Because when you are a mother like me, you learn very early that love sometimes means staying silent. That was the day I realized something painful. Trust does not always protect you, and sometimes the people you raise with sacrifice are the ones who unknowingly take everything away. My name is Shanta. I am 52 years old. I lived my life quietly. No big dreams, no big demands. I married young. My husband was a simple man. He worked hard. He spoke little. We did not have much money, but our home had warmth. A small house, 2 rooms, a kitchen that always smelled of tea and rice. Our son, Arun, was our only child. We raised him with care, but also with discipline. I woke up before sunrise every day. I cooked, I cleaned, I washed clothes by hand. My husband used to say, "Our son will study well. He will live better than us." That hope kept us moving. When Arun grew older, we spent everything on his education. We skipped new clothes, we skipped festivals. I told myself, it is fine, this is what parents do. When my husband passed away suddenly, life became quieter, too quiet. Arun was already working then. He became my whole world. Later, he married Mira. Mira was polite in the beginning, soft-spoken, always respectful. After the wedding, I moved into their house. It was bigger than mine, cleaner, more modern. I told myself to adjust. Different homes have different ways. At first, I tried to help. I cooked, I cleaned, but Mira liked things done her way. "Amma, I will manage," she would say gently but firmly. So I stepped back. I spent my days quietly, folding clothes, watering plants, waiting for my son to come home from work. Dinner was the only time we sat together. Even then, conversations were short. Phones on the table, silence between bites. Still, I felt grateful. I had a roof. I had my son nearby. I believed love was enough. The changes did not arrive loudly. They came softly. So softly that at first I blamed myself for noticing them. In the early days, I still woke up before everyone else. Old habits do not leave easily. I would make tea and sit by the kitchen window, watching the morning light touch the floor. Mira stopped joining me in the mornings. She said she was tired. I understood. Young people work hard these days. Arun used to sit with me sometimes, just for 5 minutes. He would drink tea quickly and rush out. Slowly, even those 5 minutes disappeared. He started leaving earlier, coming home later, always busy, always tired. When I asked simple questions, his answers became shorter. Yes, Amma. Later, Amma. I am busy, Amma. I told myself not to complain. Children grow up. This is normal. Still, the silence grew heavier. Mira began organizing the house differently. Cupboards changed, shelves were cleared. One afternoon, I noticed my steel plates missing from the kitchen shelf. They had been moved to a box. "These are old," Mira said lightly. "We will keep them inside." I nodded. That night, I ate from a plate that felt unfamiliar, cold, like it did not belong to me. Small rules appeared, unspoken but firm. Do not enter their room. Do not ask about plans. Do not suggest anything unless asked. I followed them carefully. Still, something felt wrong. Sometimes when I walked into a room, conversations stopped. Phones were quickly turned face down. Eyes avoided mine. I began to feel like I was disturbing something, even by breathing. One evening, I made my son's favorite lentils, the kind I used to cook when he was sick as a child. He took 2 bites and stood up. "I already ate outside," he said. He did not see my face. That night, I sat alone at the dining table, staring at the food. I wrapped it quietly and put it away. I did not cry, I just felt tired. Then came the day Arun told us about the trip. "Company work," he said, "out of town, maybe 3 weeks." Mira smiled brightly, too brightly. "That's good," she said brightly. "We can finally reorganize everything." I did not understand what she meant, but I stayed quiet. The morning Arun left, I packed his bag like I always had, shirts folded neatly, socks paired properly. He checked his phone while I worked. When I handed him the bag, he said, "Thanks, Amma." Not "thank you," just "thanks." It felt smaller. After he left, the house felt different. The walls seemed further apart, the air heavier. Mira stopped asking if I had eaten. She stopped sharing meals. She would cook for herself and take the plate into her room. I ate alone. I started spending more time in my room, sitting on the bed, holding my prayer beads. I prayed for peace, for understanding. One afternoon, Mira knocked on my door. "Amma," she said politely, "please do not rearrange the living room anymore." I was confused. "I didn't," I said softly. She smiled, a tight smile. "Just saying," she replied. After that, I was careful not to touch anything, even the curtains. I felt like a visitor who must not leave marks. Days passed slowly. Sometimes I called Arun. Sometimes he did not answer. When he did, the calls were short. "Yes, Amma. I'm in a meeting. I will call later." Later rarely came. One night, there was heavy rain. Thunder shook the windows. I remembered how Arun used to get scared of storms as a child. He would come running to my bed. I smiled sadly at the memory. That night, I could not sleep. I heard Mira talking on the phone. Her voice was low, but the walls were thin. "She doesn't understand. We need our own life. This cannot go on." I did not listen further. I lay still, staring at the ceiling. For the first time, I wondered something painful. Was I a burden? When Arun returned from his trip, I waited at the door, just like I used to. He came in with his suitcase. Mira hugged him tightly. I stood aside. He nodded at me. "Hi, Amma." That was all. That night, they talked for a long time in their room, their voices low, serious. I heard my name once, then silence. The next morning, Arun seemed different, more distant, less patient. When I asked if he wanted tea, he said, "Later." Later never came. At lunch, Mira said calmly, "We're thinking of changing some things in the house." Arun nodded. I waited for them to look at me, to include me. They didn't. That evening, Arun sat with me for the first time in weeks. "Arun," he said slowly, "you should try to be more flexible." I didn't understand. "Flexible how?" I asked. He avoided my eyes. "You know, with Mira, with the house." I nodded, though my chest felt tight. "I try," I said. He sighed. That sigh hurt more than words. From that day, I felt watched, judged. If I spoke too much, it was interference. If I stayed silent, it was awkward. There was no right place for me to be. One morning, Mira said, "Amma, please do not wait for us at night. Eat earlier." I nodded. I ate alone at 6, every day. The house became quiet early. Doors closed softly. I started sleeping earlier, not because I was tired, but because there was nothing to stay awake for. Sometimes I missed my old small house, the broken chair, the cracked walls. At least there I belonged. One evening, while washing dishes, I dropped a glass. It broke loudly. Mira came running. "Be careful," she said sharply. I apologized again and again. My hands shook. That night, Arun said nothing to me. The silence felt heavy, punishing. I began to feel afraid of making mistakes, afraid of existing. One afternoon, I overheard them talking again. "She needs somewhere else," Mira said, "just for some time." Arun was quiet. I waited for him to say no. He didn't. I went back to my room and sat on the bed. My heart felt hollow. I realized then that the distance was no longer emotional. It was becoming physical. And I knew deep inside that something was about to end. The moment that changed everything did not come with shouting. There were no angry words, no doors slammed. It came on a quiet afternoon when the house was too silent. I was sitting near the window, folding my clothes. The sunlight touched the floor softly. It felt like an ordinary day. Mira walked in and sat across from me. She held her phone in her hand, but she did not look at it. "Amma," she said calmly, "can we talk for a moment?" I nodded. My heart started beating faster, even before she spoke. She took a slow breath. "Arun and I have been thinking," she said. "We feel it would be better if you stayed somewhere else for some time." Her words were gentle, too gentle. I waited. I thought maybe she would say more. Maybe she would explain. She didn't. I asked softly, "Did I do something wrong?" She looked uncomfortable. Not guilty, just uncomfortable. "No," she said, "this is not about right or wrong." I held my hands together tightly. "Then what is it about?" I asked. She paused before answering. "We need space," she said. "Privacy." That word felt heavy, like I had been standing in the way without knowing it. I nodded slowly. "I understand," I said, even though I didn't. She smiled in relief, as if a difficult task had been completed. Later that evening, Arun came home. He did not sit with me like he used to. Mira spoke for both of them. "Amma knows," she said. Arun looked at me then, really looked at me. For a moment, I hoped he would say something different, something kind, something protective. Instead, he looked away. "We will help you pack," he said quietly. That was all. No discussion, no hesitation. I went to my room and closed the door gently. My hands felt numb as I opened the cupboard. I packed slowly, one sari at a time. Each one held a memory. I folded the blue one I wore at Arun's graduation, the white one from his wedding. I left many things behind, not because I didn't want them, but because I didn't want to carry too much pain. While packing, I noticed my old photo frame. My husband's picture smiled back at me. "I tried," I whispered. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, the house felt strange, like it was already forgetting me. I made tea out of habit. No one joined me. My sister arrived in the afternoon. She was surprised to see my packed bags. "What happened?" she asked. I smiled softly. "Nothing," I said. "Just a small change." She did not ask more. Maybe she understood. When it was time to leave, I stood near the door, the same door where I had once waved goodbye to my son. I turned to Arun. "I will be fine," I said. "Do not worry." He nodded. He did not hug me. As the door closed behind me, I felt something break quietly inside. At my sister's house, I stayed in a small room. It was clean, it was quiet, but it was not mine. Days passed slowly, too slowly. I stopped calling Arun. I did not want to disturb him. Sometimes I picked up the phone and then put it down again. I spent my time sitting near the window, watching people live their lives. I wondered where I went wrong. Was I too present, too caring, or simply too old? One evening, my sister asked gently, "Do you miss him?" I nodded. "I miss the boy he used to be," I said. Months later, the phone rang. It was Arun. His voice sounded tired, different. "Amma," he said softly, "can you come back for a few days?" I did not ask why. When I reached the house, it felt empty. Mira was gone. Arun looked smaller somehow, like the strength had drained out of him. "She left," he said quietly. I listened. I did not say, "I warned you." I did not ask questions. I simply sat beside him. That night he cried. Not loudly, not like a man breaking down, like a child who finally felt safe enough to let go. "I should have protected you," he said. I didn't. I placed my hand on his head. "Life teaches us slowly," I said. In that moment, I understood something painful but true. Sometimes love does not protect us from loss. It only teaches us how to survive it. When Mira left, the house did not feel empty in a loud way. It felt empty in a tired way, like a place that had been holding its breath for too long and finally let go. Arun and I sat together that first evening without speaking much. The television stayed off. The lights were dim. I made tea the way I always did, slowly, carefully. He held the cup with both hands. His fingers trembled. "I don't know what to do now," he said quietly. I looked at my son, not as a man who would hurt me, but as the boy I once held when he was afraid of the dark. "You don't have to know right now," I said. "Just sit." He nodded. That night, I slept in my old room. The bed felt familiar, but different. I noticed how empty the cupboards were, how quiet the walls felt. In the morning, Arun left for work without saying much, but before leaving, he paused near the door. "I will call you later," he said. It was a small sentence, but it felt like a beginning. While he was gone, I cleaned the house gently, not to fix it, just to care for it. I opened windows, let air come in. I found my old prayer book in the storeroom. Dust covered it. I wiped it slowly. I did not pray for answers. I prayed for peace. In the days that followed, Arun and I began learning how to live together again, not as before, but differently. We ate dinner at the table, sometimes in silence, sometimes with small talk. "How was work?" I would ask. "Long," he would say, but at least he answered. One evening, he spoke first. "I didn't see it then," he said. "How alone you must have felt." I did not respond immediately. I stirred my tea slowly. "Loneliness doesn't always show," I said. "Sometimes it just sits quietly." He looked down. "I thought I was doing the right thing," he said, "for my marriage." I nodded. "You were trying to balance two worlds," I said. "Sometimes balance fails." He wiped his eyes. That night, I understood something important. Healing does not happen all at once. It arrives in small moments of honesty. Weeks passed. Mira did not return. She sent a message once, asking about some papers. I did not reply, not out of bitterness, but because I did not know what to say. Arun handled it quietly. I noticed he had changed. He listened more. He spoke slower. He began calling me during the day. "Did you eat, Amma? Are you okay?" Those words felt familiar, but also new. One afternoon, while folding clothes together, he said, "I am sorry." Not loudly, not dramatically, just 2 words. I stopped folding. "I forgive you," I said. He looked surprised. "I forgive you," I repeated, "because holding pain will only make us both tired." He leaned his head against my shoulder, just for a moment. I stayed still. In that moment, something softened between us. Still, forgiveness did not erase everything. Some memories stayed sharp. Sometimes, when the house became too quiet, my chest felt heavy. Sometimes I woke up at night remembering the day I left. On those nights, I reminded myself of something my mother once said. Pain that is faced becomes lighter. So I faced it, slowly, one day at a time. I also began to do small things for myself, things I had stopped doing. I started walking in the morning, just around the street. I talked to neighbors, smiled. I joined a small prayer group nearby, not for religion, for company. I learned that my life did not end when my place in my son's house changed. It simply shifted. One day, Arun came home early. He said, "I want to tell you something." I listened. I thought being a good husband meant choosing one side. I didn't realize being a good son meant standing quietly but firmly. I nodded. Life teaches us late, but it teaches us honestly. Months passed. The house slowly felt like home again, not the old home, but a new version. We set boundaries, gently. I did not interfere, he did not ignore. We respected each other's space. Sometimes I stayed with my sister for a few days. Sometimes I returned. This time, leaving and coming back felt like choice, not rejection. One evening, Arun said, "Amma, you don't have to go anywhere anymore." I smiled. "I know," I said, "but it is good to know I can." That freedom felt important. I began to understand my own strength, not loud strength, quiet strength, the kind that survives loss without hardening, the kind that forgives without forgetting lessons. One night, Arun placed a small photo frame on the table. It was an old picture of our family. "You belong here," he said. I looked at the picture. "I always did," I replied softly. As time moved forward, I stopped blaming myself. I stopped asking what I could have done differently. Some things are not mistakes, they are experiences. I learned that love must include respect, even from children. I learned that silence should be chosen, not forced. And most importantly, I learned that losing everything sometimes clears space for something truer, peace. Now, when I look back at everything that happened, I do not see only pain, I see understanding. Life did not turn out the way I imagined when I was young, but it taught me things I could not have learned any other way. There was a time when my whole identity was being a mother. My days were shaped around my son's needs. My happiness depended on his smile. When that changed, I felt lost, as if the ground beneath me had quietly moved away. But slowly, I learned something important. Being a mother does not mean disappearing. It means loving without losing yourself. I used to think silence was strength, that if I stayed quiet, things would stay peaceful. Now I know silence can protect love, but only when it is chosen, not when it is forced. I also learned that children grow into their own lives. They carry new responsibilities, new pressures, new fears. Sometimes they make mistakes trying to balance everything. That does not make them bad, it makes them human. But parents, too, are human. We need kindness. We need respect. We need a place where our presence is not questioned. Today, my son and I share a different relationship. Not perfect, but honest. We talk more openly. We listen more carefully. When misunderstandings appear, we do not let them grow quietly. We speak gently before silence becomes distance again. I spend more time with myself now. I read, I walk, I sit with my thoughts, and I am not afraid of being alone. Because I learned the difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness hurts, solitude heals. Sometimes I still miss the past, the sound of my husband's footsteps, the laughter of a younger home. But I no longer live there. I live here, in this moment, with acceptance. If you are listening to my story and you feel invisible in your own family, please remember this. Your worth does not disappear because someone fails to see it. Love does not mean endurance without limits. It means care for others and for yourself. If you are a parent, love your children deeply, support them, guide them, but do not forget your own voice. And if you are a child, remember this. The people who raised you also need tenderness. They also need to feel safe. One day, silence will fill the spaces they once occupied. Make sure it is not filled with regret. Today, when I sit by the window in the evening, I watch the light fade slowly, not with sadness, but with peace. Because I know now, even when everything feels lost, life can still give you something gentle in return. Understanding, dignity, and the quiet strength to begin again.